I'm masked today.
You're so mad.
I'm masked.
Let's go.
Keeps is an online subscription service which makes it easy and more affordable for men to treat their male pattern baldness from the comfort of their own home. So 2 out of 3 guys experience male pattern baldness by the time they're 35. And I, unfortunately, fall into that majority. I started to lose my hair whenever I was still in high school, and had I been a little more accepting of that and proactive about it, I could have saved more of my hair. But it's not too late for most of you, because that's where Keeps comes in. So basically the way that it works is that there are currently 2 FDA-approved hair loss treatments, and what Keeps does is they combine both of those in a 2-in-1 gel. And the treatments are clinically proven to work, being up to 90% effective at stopping hair loss, and increasing hair growth by up to 35%, with most men noticing results within the first 6 months. But you don't have to take my word for it, because they've already helped over 1 million men, with thousands of 5-star reviews with before and after pictures. And in addition to the treatments, they also have other products like shampoos, conditioners, and styling pomades. And the best part is that it's super convenient and affordable. No going to see medical providers or paying for expensive prescriptions, just affordable, expert-level hair care delivered to your door in discreet packaging. And they work with your schedule with the flexibility of 3, 6, and 12-month delivery options. Plus, you can adjust, pause, or cancel your plan at any time. Just take their quick online consultation and they'll craft a treatment plan tailor-made to your needs. So whether you're trying to stop hair loss, stimulate growth, or just maintain your hair, Keeps has you covered. Thank you again to Keeps for sponsoring this episode and for the free product. Hair loss stops with Keeps. For a special offer to get started, go to keeps.com/MaddyMorphosis or click the link in the description. That's KEEPS.com/MADDYMORPHOSIS. Again, keeps.com/MaddyMorphosis. And now onto the video. Hi guys, and welcome back to Give It To Me Straight, an equal opportunity employer. I'm your host, Maddy Morphosis, and joining me on the show today is the winner of Season 3 of Boulay Brothers Dragula, the King of Kings, Mr. Landon Cider.
Hi, I'm the diversity hire today.
Yeah, honestly, you know.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming all this way, being the premiere. Well, not the premiere because we had Lux recently, but thank you for following in those footsteps to give a little bit more king energy for the show.
Look at you.
I know.
You went all out.
I know, this is probably the most uncomfortable I've ever been in drag, just in a full silicone chest piece choker, but you know.
Kings don't try as hard though. I don't know what you're talking about.
No. I'm the hardest working king in show business.
Yes, you are.
Well, people say that about me.
I've heard.
But I feel like this show is going to provide a lot of opportunity to discuss a lot of like nuance and open a lot of conversations about like representation in drag, especially, you know, kings, AFAB entertainers, etc. But before we get into all of that, I just want to take a moment to bring it back and just talk about just you.
My favorite subject.
Okay. So take us back to just like little baby Landon.
Yes.
Back in the day.
That picture. I had a dream that you were going to show me this picture.
That one?
Yeah.
There was another one I found where you were even younger, but I wasn't 100% sure if it was you. So I was like, I don't want to risk it. And
was I sitting like a bisexual on a lawn chair?
No, but
okay.
Have you always just... It was always within you.
Open, all awkward, eating a bowl of cookies on a lawn chair in the living room.
No, I don't remember what it was, but I looked at it and I was like, it looks like Landon, but I don't know 100%. And if I bust out someone else's childhood picture, that's going to be the most awkward moment we've had on the show so far.
Yeah. I almost, if I couldn't get a picture of you for our extra content, I was going to show you a picture of Macaulay Culkin just to with you.
Right.
I love how I'm like, I made a little package and I'm holding it. I'm like already pre-drag king, like holding my...
The king was in you all along. Yeah.
My mom made me this dress. Mm-hmm. This is the age where she was still making my clothes. Yeah.
Now you make your own?
Innocent. No. I hire people.
Oh, Amazon. Right.
Yeah. Amazon now. You're definitely wearing Amazon now.
I am.
Clocked that from a mile
This is literally what you get if you order Landon Cider off Amazon.
Yes.
This is the 2-day shipping version.
You both ears on top and then you're good to go.
Yeah.
I love this.
But what was your childhood like whenever you were younger? Like, take us back, your early childhood, a young little Latino girl in SoCal. Like, what was your upbringing like?
I was in East LA. I'll put it next to Rodney. What is his name?
Ronnie.
Ronnie.
The first king on Drag Race.
King on Drag Race, the only king on Drag Race.
Well, Miley was there too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Damn it. I don't know my Drag Race trivia. How dare I? I grew up in East LA. A close family. We lived right by my grandparents. My mom never knew my dad. He was never around. They got divorced before I was even born. My mom said him because he was not great guy. So lucky to be away from him. But she was incredible. My mom raised me to be the badass that I own today. She was legally blind, partially deaf, had heart problems, had feet problems, and she still worked extra under the table to give me everything that I could possibly get. So I loved my childhood when it comes to that. I don't remember anything from my childhood. I'm one of those people that have some kind of trauma that my brain went,
Suppressed it.
you know what? Don't remember that. And if it's my brain's telling me not to remember something, I'm okay. I'm okay not remembering it. But yeah, I don't remember
Well,
a
man.
lot of my childhood.
At this show, we love to unpack trauma, and you don't remember yours.
Unfortunately.
It's bad for the
Sorry,
show.
guys.
Oh well, we'll make something up.
Interview's over.
We'll circle back. Just think of something. Make up a trauma.
Okay,
We'll circle back.
make it
We'll
up.
filter it in. Yeah. But growing up, did you always know or have an inkling of like your sexuality, or is that something that came much later in your life?
Much later. I had no idea. I never had crushes, never had anything like that. I didn't really have my first realization of a crush until I was like late teens, early 20s, out of high school. I realized looking back that I was in love with my kindergarten teacher. I was obsessed with my best friend in third grade. Like I realize that now, but it was like just obsessions in that way where I was going to really, really miss them
Yeah.
over summertime. And so I cried or when I wasn't going to be in their class anymore. So
You were just like writing your teacher's name in a journal with hearts all around it. You're like, she's
yeah.
just a cool
But they were
teacher.
like circles because I didn't really know that there was going to be hearts yet. So
Oh,
yeah.
right. Like emoji pending.
Yeah, very dot, 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 dot.
But you mentioned that your mom was really influential in your life, but your dad wasn't around. Like, did you ever build any kind of connection to your dad, even like after the fact? Like,
No.
you never had any kind of.
No, it wasn't until even like maybe 5 years ago that I realized he died when I was in high school.
Oh,
Like that's
wow.
how far apart detached we were. He never was around.
Mm.
I have like a picture of him holding me when I was like 3 years old when he came to visit once. He moved to Vegas actually, I found out.
Oh, wow.
So maybe you knew him.
Maybe finest guy here. So
Yeah, true. And you were
yeah,
born when I was like in high school, so probably not.
yeah. I'm from Arkansas.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
Fayetteville.
yeah. I didn't know if you knew that or not.
Poor
Yeah,
Arkansas.
yeah. But like obviously like your drag persona now, like you exude so much like male energy. Did you have any male role models like growing up, or was it really just you and your mom?
My grandpa. My grandpa was around. But not really. That was pretty much it. And he wasn't like he didn't step in as a father figure. He was just around and worked a lot and gave me my first drink of a beer when I was like 6 when he told me to go get him one and he would reward me with a taste. Yeah. So not really a lot of male figures. It's kind of made it up in my head and that's who I am now. That's why he's so fluid and does so many
This
things.
is what you think men are. You've
Yeah,
never
hello.
actually met
This
one.
is
You're
what
like
guys look like?
more or
Oh,
less,
okay.
more or less.
I thought it
Yeah,
was
I mean, in
male
this day and age.
impersonation, no?
Yeah. But did you find it difficult growing up as like a young Latina girl who hated bell peppers? Was that like a
Yes.
issue for you?
Yes, I hate bell peppers. I do. And I hate avocado too, which is horrible to be a little Latina girl, Mexicana who hates avocado.
Like you go to the Mexican restaurant, you get a grilled cheese.
Yeah.
You're one of those.
No, I don't. I get flautas, but or enchiladas. Now you're making me hungry. Damn, and carbs too. It was because I was, it's the funny opposite of like I was always light skinned and white, and my mom would pursue that even more. She would put sun in my hair to make my hair more blonde. She would. She and my mom both kept my dad's name, which is a white last name. So it's very much with like first and second generation, like Mexicans did, especially back then. You try to assimilate, and so you try to pass as white. So on paper you look white, in real life you look white, so that you can get more opportunities that weren't being given to the people of color, and still aren't. But at the time in East LA, it was really focused on segregating Latinos, and it was just a couple decades after Dodger Stadium was built and completely kicked everyone out that lived there in really like violent ways. So there was a lot of racism against Mexicans. So my mom really tried to raise me white, but I still knew the culture. And
I was gonna ask if you were still like somewhat involved in like your,
oh yeah,
Latina culture.
oh yeah,
or-
for sure. Going to all the quinceañeras and the bodas and all the fiestas and the backyard parties and.
I'm just imagining you're inviting your friends to your 15th birthday, and they're like, "Why is the white girl having a quince?"
Right, yeah, we couldn't afford a quinceañera, so I never had one. But yeah, it was. I grew up poor in East LA, so not Arkansas, but East
Yeah.
LA. Yeah, so there was difficulties, but my mom never let me see the difficulties. I grew up around like drive-bys, and then we moved out of East LA to a nicer area, and then, just kept going that way.
So if my timeline is correct, this is actually your 15th year of doing drag. You ever thought about having a drag quince? You
Oh, I've never thought of that.
can have your drag quince.
Yeah, you're right. I should do that. It's
Yeah.
a good idea. I'll do that. I'll have like chambelanes, which is like the dancers that you have, and we like practice. But I'll do like a gender swap.
Oh, gender swap quince.
Keep an eye out, everyone.
Yeah.
The gender swap quince.
What would a quince look like for Landon Cider? How would you mix the
Oh, I think
elements?
it has to be super gaudy, super Mexican with like roses and like lots of ruffles. I'm down. I'm down to have super gaudy ruffles. Someone sponsor me. This is gonna be real expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm picturing like a really huge like bottom skirt, obviously for
for
like the
sure.
quince dress, but with
Yeah,
just like a little like
a little
luchador,
tuxedo
little
top.
tuxedo top.
Something like that. We need
Yeah.
like a mariachi bow or something. Yeah, I'm all about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go. You want to be my
So,
chambelan?
you're what?
My chambelan would be like my main person. That's my partner, my dancer, like my.
Oh, I got two left feet. You don't want
Me
this.
too. That
You
would be
don't.
look great. We'll complement each other really well.
Okay, we're just tumbling over each other. Yeah. It's like they're wrestling, fighting at a birthday party. That's white culture.
That is white culture.
Wrestling
Oh,
at a white birthday
that is
party.
also Mexican culture. Oh yeah,
Oh yeah, luchador. Yeah, I keep forgetting about that. Just like,
just
there's
parties, just backyard parties.
a lot of
Someone's gonna fight.
yeah, a lot of times like cultures, people think of like the Venn diagrams. They're a lot more circular than people
For
realize.
sure, ghetto is ghetto no matter what color you are. Yeah.
I'm over here like cis white straight person talking about the ghetto Mexican culture. But in addition to like all the things you loved growing up, one of the big thing was theater. Little, little Christine in
Oh
the
my
theater.
God,
I almost lost it. I almost
yes.
dropped
Let
it on
me
that
see
one.
that. That is old. It's even black and white. That's how old I am.
Yeah, well, color cameras weren't invented yet, but was performing and doing the theater, was that something like that set in for you early on, or was it something you found in high school?
Early on, I was always in like the talent shows and stuff. My first
What
time
was your talent?
in drag, lip syncing actually. My first, I know, my
It's not
first
a
time
talent.
in drag on stage was as Bart Simpson, lip syncing the Bart man, and I
That was your
rode
first
my
time as a
rode
drag
my
king.
yeah rode my skateboard across the stage, and my mom tried to like tease my hair up to be like spiky, and tried to like spray it yellow. Yeah, this is funny. This is from Bye Bye Birdie, and I played Mama Mae Peterson, and I was in high school. I was the heaviest that I've ever been, but I got real close to that recently. So yeah.
So like, one of your first times performing in a talent show, Bart Simpson. So like that was the earliest seed that was planted of like your drag character. You were doing male characters all the way back then.
Yeah.
What age you said that was?
Probably when I was around 9. Yeah, I think that was 9.
Damn.
But we didn't know that it was gender play. That was just dressing up and acting silly on stage,
Yeah.
It's so innocent, and it still is, but
Yeah.
people get it all up.
Yeah. But now you deal with more drunk people while you do it. But
True.
That's showbiz, baby.
Yep. Exactly.
But after high school, you continued down the path of like theater. Did you actually go to school for theater, or did you just be a part of productions after high school?
I went to junior college and I was involved in their theater program, but I didn't go to a theater school. I went to school with the intention of going to school full time and then just transferring to a UC. But I just ended up taking like all my theater classes, just the theater classes, the singing classes, the stuff that was ended up gearing myself to the stuff I liked because my mom was sick and started to die when I was in college. So I didn't have time to be full time in school and still work my full time job. So I just kept a couple classes and it ended up being theater.
Well, you mentioned your mom like becoming sick, and it was shortly after her passing that you stopped doing theater. Obviously, your mother's passing would take a huge toll on you, especially with the connection that you had. But why did it make you like leave the theater though? Like, what happened in your life? What was the ripple effect of that took you off the stage?
I turned away from everything that I loved and was comfortable, and I just went into like a depression shell and hermit. And I just worked my job and went home. And eventually, when I came out and was comfortable, I would just go to the bars. So I would go to work at like 6 o'clock in the morning, open up the restaurant, work until 3 or 4, go home, take a nap, get ready, go to the bars, come home, probably still drunk, and then just repeat like all the time. So I wasn't doing anything that I lost all my passions.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't understand that I was in a depression. I didn't know that I should pull myself out of it by finding my passions again. I just slowly pulled myself out by, I don't even know how, just did it.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it was like kind of time, or was it like something in your life that might have like happened to kind of pull you back out of that? Because I mean, obviously, like, you found drag at some point, you got back on the stage,
Mm-hmm.
you found your partner, which we'll talk about a little bit. But like, were there other things that started to get you out of that, or was it really just like the passage of
I think
time?
it's just time. Healing. I started getting tattoos in memory of my mom. There's a lot of guilt that went on with my mom's passing. I put up a lot of walls when she was dying, and I was her caregiver, but there was still like I barely remember that time of my life too. Like I really blocked out a lot of my life. And I was coming out of the closet as she was dying. So there was just so many things, and my family was asking about my sexual identity. Even my mom was dying. There was like so many things that were just going on, and I just felt lots of guilt. So I think time and processing it and letting myself heal and forgiving myself just finally to break out of that. And I pretty much did that by moving to Long Beach when I was like 23. I finally
Just kind of removing yourself from that
from the
place
city,
and
yeah, because I had already found my own place. I had a friend that found me a place right away. But moving in with some roommates, I think that would really help me out.
the people that you met in this new place, was it people within like the queer community, or was it just
Yeah,
other people in
there was
general?
some friends that I met at a bar and I became friends with, and we started hanging out on a regular basis outside of just the bars. And her and her partner at the time were gonna buy a house, so they wanted to know if I could move in with them, and we would go. We went house shopping together, even to like go because that was we kind of needed my income to help pay the
Right.
mortgage, and moved in from them. Yeah, moved in from there.
Well, whenever your life started to kind of get back on track and you started to, make friends, find happiness again, did you ever think to go back into the theater, or was that just kind of a bygone era at that point?
I thought about it. It was just I don't think I was ready to deal with all the rejection that comes from it again. So and the idea of all of the characters that I had played, and I didn't really understand that theater had evolved into a more open space because I had always played the funny lady, the lady in waiting, the I got to play like roles like Maria in West Side Story in college productions, but that was because there's only two girls that auditioned for Maria that was 21. Everyone else was like younger, or
Hmm.
it was like a split special with junior high kids and college kids. And so we did West Side Story with a bunch of junior high kids. So
Oh,
the leads had to be adults and all the supporting characters were the junior high
yeah.
kids. It was just a weird. So like
It's
yeah,
just the baby
I played
sharks.
Maria
It's
because I
just
was the only adult auditioning for Maria. But yeah, I didn't understand that theater had evolved into a place that I could find myself in. So I remember drag and I love drag and I was going to drag shows on a regular basis. So I just figured let's make this mine.
hmm As you're saying, like you went through all those like health things with your mom, and then you finally through time and meeting new people, you kind of like overcame that and
Hmm.
managed to like move on in a sense. But it was shortly after that that you actually developed your own health problems
Hmm.
when you developed oral cancer in
Yeah.
2008. Obviously, that takes a huge like physical toll, but like what kind of effect did it have after all the stuff that happened with your mom? Like what kind of effect did that have on you like mentally?
I was completely prepared because when she was sick, she came in prepared with questions all the time. She was doing research. I do remember helping her like look up stuff and questions. She was on a lot of experimental drugs because nothing was working. So they were kind of using her for science purposes. So she had a lot of questions. And so when I went in, I was prepared to not just do anything that the doctors told me. I wanted to know why, how, when, all the questions, and I wanted to know what other things that were at my ability to use as well. I wanted to be as informed as possible. I knew the possibility of me just dying was there, and I knew that that was possible, but I never really gave it a chance to blossom in my mind or my soul. It was always when I get through this, what am I going to do with my time? What am I going to do with my life
Yeah.
when I finally get through this? And it was the hardest and most painful thing I've ever gone through. But I knew that I had more life to live.
Yeah, after that first bout, you kind of went into remission, but then it was shortly after that, like a year or two later, that the oral cancer came back, and which required you, as you said, to have an operation. You had part of your tongue removed, almost had to have your entire tongue removed, or
Yeah.
most of it.
The first surgery, I had to have my tongue removed too.
Yeah. Oh, so,
Parts of my tongue.
oh, so you had like parts during both operations,
Yeah.
part of your tongue?
So the first one I had the back. So like if this is my tongue, this is the tip, like I had all of this removed. And so it makes some people trolls like sometimes go into my comments and make fun of my lisp or the way I talk, or like take your dentures out, and it's like you're making fun of something that like if you're a troll that actually cares about humans, like I would have the time to take the time to explain this to you, but you're not. But people like to make fun of my lisp or the way I talk sometimes, but it's because I literally have a big chunk of my tongue missing. So then for the second surgery, they took out more because it came back into.
I was gonna say, like, after your second operation, you actually had to like relearn how to speak, right? Or was it after the first one?
No, it was a little bit of both. I had to do some work, but it wasn't to that point. I was nervous that the second surgery, I was rushed in so quickly, I didn't have answers. So I didn't know to what extent my surgery was going to be until I woke up from surgery. So I had no idea if I was going to be able to speak, if I was going to have to learn how to speak, if I was going to be able to chew food and swallow it. Like I didn't know to what extent anything was going to be. And luckily I was still left enough where I'm able to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask like what that was like emotionally, but obviously, as you said, you kind of faced it head on. You said, okay, let's do this.
It's still, I have scares a lot still. Like even what I'm going through right now with my dental work, it's still scary. And like every time you go in and you have to have these conversations with your doctors, it's like that slap in the face reminder. And so I lean on my wife a lot still during the really emotional breakdowns, and she's there for me every time. And it's scary every time. So it still happens, and it'll happen for the rest of my life because I fought a aggressive cancer at an early age, but they don't have a lot of examples of someone my age at the time. I was, in my early 30s, so my late 20s, and they didn't have people fighting at that age. So all of the new symptoms and side effects that I have now occurring, they're like, well, we haven't really seen this yet. We usually, people who are this far out of having their cancer removed are probably dead by now because they're already old. So these things are kind of occurring now with not too many, not enough information for me to be like, you'll be fine. It's all kind of like, well, maybe my jaw is dying and maybe in a couple of years I'll have to have a jaw replacement. But for now it's okay. Let's just keep going. So it's like still a mystery and still very emotional.
Just keeping as sunny of a disposition as you can have, giving
Exactly. Because to me, it's about being grateful for what you do have and facing things head on with the focus on the glimmer of light, because even in your darkest dark, there's still light somewhere. You just have to look for it, right? So like focusing on that light is where I think is what always pushes me to get through everything.
No, not me. I complain about acid reflux on Facebook. We're different.
No, I definitely complain about shit. I'm just being in those serious moments, I try to stay positive. Yeah.
But despite all like the downturns and the health issues, you did overcome, and you eventually found your love at the stage again when you started performing in drag. Circle around, like, was it 2008 or 9?
2009.
2009.
Yeah.
So 2009, you hit the stage again. What was it about like becoming a drag king that was like so important to you that made you want to get back on the stage? Like what happened in 2009 where you're like, the world needs this? Like what? What?
That is not what I mean, it's kind of where we're on stage, but this is a mess. This is a drunken mess. At least with Raja, though.
That's true.
That's with Raja.
That
I was
makes
a
it
mess
worse,
with
honestly.
Raja.
You gotta compare.
But she's in a simple black dress, so
Yeah.
it wasn't much different than what I was wearing. It's Raja. Wow. I don't know how to explain it. I was just pulled towards drag kinging and playing with makeup thanks to Kevin Aquan and how to like transform my face. I was obsessed with the transformation of makeup, and I didn't think that being a drag queen was an option anyway, because I always thought it was boys become girls, girls become boys type of thing. So I was still
Back
stuck
in your
in that,
day, the men were women and the women were men. It was
exactly, that
simple.
binary. Yeah. So you know what? We all get better. It gets better. Remember?
And in your defense, you did that in 2009. Other people are still doing it today. So, you know.
And then this, that's true. That were performing back then too. And then this time it was about like illusion and impersonation. It was male impersonation, male illusion. You were trying to pass, which is problematic already, but pass as a gender you were trying to perform as. You wanted to get hit on at the bar by the dudes. And then I realized I didn't want that. I wanted people to see all the makeup and effort that I put in, that, yeah, you can touch my face and feel the stubble, but you couldn't appreciate the makeup and the fact that that stubble took me 2 hours to apply. So I started to up my drag and started to stop wearing tank tops with a bow tie, with like makeup kisses all over me.
It was a different time.
Yeah.
You know? It's like, well, I think like the only like king representation at time was the one drag king character on the L Word. So that was like pretty much it.
Yep.
Yeah, like that was it.
Performing in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Be your man, or what was that song?
I don't even remember.
One lover. Yeah.
I don't even remember.
Yeah.
But with your drag and getting into it, you actually took kind of like the path less traveled, because a lot of kings, like, they kind of travel in their own packs, often performing with like burlesque dancers or performing in troops. But you kind of went in with a different mindset. How do I word this? What was your thinking whenever you were getting into drag, and like your thought process behind how you wanted to enter the scene?
I wanted to make a mark. I wanted to do everything that the drag queens were doing. I didn't think that there was any reason for me not to expect to be doing the level of stuff that they were doing when it comes to comedy mixes and characters and cosplay and impersonations and full costumes and wigs and complete transformations and makeup. I wanted to do what they did, but just my own version of it. And I didn't think there was any reason to not think that that was what was expected of me. And I had the Dreamgirls review as a huge inspiration, which was at that time one of the country's best drag casts. It was voted like in nationally, you know, however you vote nationally on MySpace days, but like it was a nationally recognized drag cast. And here in Southern California, there was every night there was a different Dreamgirl show across the region. So, and in order to be a Dreamgirl, you needed to be able to have multiple impersonations, multiple cosplays. You had to have so many different kinds of drag because they had so many theme nights. And so you had to be able to be booked to be like, well, this is this night, you got to bring something. And so to me, that meant try as hard as I can, build up my repertoire to be as diverse as it could be, so I could try to be a dream boy one day, even though I didn't know if being a dream boy was an option because they only had queens, but it was a goal.
Well, I mean, obviously, like, you didn't immediately get into, you know, the Dreamgirls cast, becoming the dream boy.
Right.
So, like, getting up to that point, did you receive a lot of pushback in these drag spaces because you were a king trying to exist and perform amongst the queens?
From some of the clientele, yes. I could hear a drag king, let's go get a smoke, or time to go when I was being introduced. I can hear the whispers from the audience because they had no idea what to expect. But the drag queens, they saw my potential out the gate and they were like, you're different. Yes, come, have stage time, hone your craft, practice. Here's opportunities to grow because there's something about you that's different and we want to encourage you. So the drag entertainers embraced me and really helped me excel by giving me opportunities to perform. Didn't get paid for a few years, but I still had opportunities to grow. But of course you hear it from mostly gay guys, you know, people have assumptions about stuff, and maybe they saw one drag king in the past and that they didn't enjoy, so they just assume all of it's going to be like that, and it's still like that today. So why am I surprised?
Well, I was going to ask, like, the next question, with a lot of the spaces you were trying to perform in, predominantly being spaces inhabited by like gay men, do you think a lot of the pushback and negativity that you received was because you were a drag king in a predominantly queen space, or because you were a woman in a gay male mostly occupied space?
I think both. I think a lot of men aren't comfortable with the critique of masculinity, that they're okay to, it's systemic misogyny is really all it is. Even from, you know, the gay rights movement and of the 60s and 70s. It was very lesbians were in charge of that movement, and then they kept getting misogynistic gay men telling them, you belong in the kitchen anyway, let's go to the kitchen, like their own people fighting for the same rights, and you're telling them to go back to the kitchen. So the lesbians gave up and started to give up on the men and went and did their own thing and joined the women's movement instead. And so that's why we have a history of just gay men being the forefront, but it's because women were at the forefront, but they got kicked out because of misogyny of men. And that has never left. That's still there. And we see that today by no gay women's spaces or sapphic spaces. You don't have a lot of that. And it's all the built-in misogyny. So I think a woman being in the gay club and drag king is both kind of the same thing, where it comes from the same place.
Like a double whammy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's the same whammy, actually.
It is the same whammy.
The real whammy was the discrimination we faced along the way.
You don't know
No
whammies.
whammies.
Yeah.
But with all the negativity you received, was there ever a point where you thought about like quitting and you're just like, this isn't fun? Like, I kind of just want to, I should just go back to my day job.
No, because I wanted to prove them wrong. That was the fire that, like,
it made you want to do it more.
Yeah, because I can tell that I was changing minds. I could see that those same guys who were like, oh, a drag king, the first couple of times that they heard me perform, and then they accidentally caught a show, and then they were like, oh, this is different, and they were coming up to me like, and I still hear it, like, I never heard of drag kings, or all the drag kings I've ever seen have been boring, but you're different, and I still hear that to this day. But it was those moments of like, see, I know I can do this, and I have the rest of the crowd. The rest of the crowd is giving me life. The rest of the crowd is going up. I can't hear my music over the cheers, and I'm doing it for them. I'm not doing it for the haters, but that little bit of me was also to prove the haters wrong, and to take away all of the things that they could hate me for, to either just be, you just don't like my drag. It's not that my drag isn't valid, you just don't like it, or you're just a misogynistic piece of that's ingrained in the patriarchy. And either of those, I don't care about you anyway. So if you don't like my drag, you don't like my drag. I don't care.
Do you ever think that maybe their misogyny is also valid?
No. No, I don't think I'll ever think that.
You should look inward.
Oh, yeah, maybe you should look inward. Appropriating masculinity right now.
I'm appropriating masculinity. It's 2024. The men can be men too.
I don't know about that.
Yeah. What's next? AFAB queens?
Oh, what?
That'll be the day.
Gross.
But a lot of the queens that I've had on the show have talked about how drag for them was like an expression of their femininity. For you, like, was drag like an extension of your masculinity, or was it more just like theater for you?
Theater.
Theater?
It's always been theater. The masculinity inside of me definitely comes out, and I tap into it, but as an actor. I don't really find it as an expression of my masculinity. I did have a moment where I did question, like, why do I like dressing up like that? Why do I like looking at myself in the mirror? Am I trans? Do I have a trans journey that I need to explore more? And I did do some deep diving on that because I was confused by why I was enjoying this so much. But I quickly realized it was theater. It's all about putting on a show, telling a story, trying to create the world that's going on in my brain somehow on the stage by just my actions and storytelling abilities. And when I'm able to do that and people are like, oh, I pictured like you were here, I'm all perfect, because that's exactly what I was hoping you would imagine, and especially back in the day before we had LED screens and all these great advances and the way that we could bring our visions to life. We were just on a bare stage with a mirror behind us, so everyone was just looking at their face in the mirror, and you got to figure out how to storytell somehow, and it's all about theater for me.
Yeah, it's okay to be trans. You go to the grocery store like this?
No, I do not.
Not to make assumptions about like your drag, but whenever I see like you doing like male characters and how you portray them, it does seem less of like an expression of masculinity and more of a critique on it. With you, like, and you've talked before, or you mentioned it before about like, the machismo of drag, like your characters and this toxic masculinity. How do you think that your drag kind of gives like a critique on that and like subverts that?
When I do perform like hyper masculine machismo, it's usually either to push those stereotypes further by like making the gags be so extreme of like just being ridiculous where I'm inviting the audience to be like, we have these kinds of guys in charge. We, as a society have put these people on a pedestal and they're in charge of everything. Isn't that ridiculous? Right? You agree with me on that, and it can invite them to think about that a little bit more, or flip the switch so much where these hyper masculine machismo guys end up being like a fairy twink, and it's that same thing where both of those characters exist in real life, but it's a way of performing it in a way to make people think about it or just laugh at the playing on opposites, which is still comes from theater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What am I critiquing right now? What is this? Who am I? I'm a dude playing another dude.
You are a dude playing another dude, but
With what I'm doing right now, would you say that this is a male performer or a male drag king? Like, how would you define this?
I don't define other people's art, so I think I would have to ask you that question.
I don't define my own art. I don't consider what I do art. I'm just
Let's see, there you go.
Yeah. I'm so curious, like, outside point of view.
But see, and that to me is like a point of view that's not mine to have either, because it's not really.
If you're booking a king show, am I in your mind?
Yeah, if you think that you would want to perform my show, yeah. My king shows are diverse. They don't just have kings. They have in-betweens, queens, they have everything. So, like, if you think that you fall under the category of king, then I'll be happy to have you.
I'm just in it for the paycheck.
That's true.
That's all this is for me.
Small one, so.
Yeah. I'm gonna spend $100 in gas to get $50 in a drink ticket.
Or even that, because you're still new. So I don't know if you've earned the paycheck yet. I think you might have to work some tip class or be in some contests first before you get the paycheck.
Do it for exposure. Okay.
Yeah. Let's see how you perform. I don't know how you perform yet. So how can I pay you if I don't even know how you perform?
That's fair. Well, there's videos of me performing on VH1, but those aren't a good representation. Those are old videos.
Oh, okay.
So I'll send you some edited ones.
Please.
Yeah. But despite being an obvious proponent for drag kings, you've also been one of the harshest critics of them. And you said many times before that a lot of drag kings are lazy. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that you don't, for any artist, you can't just start out and expect everything that you see everyone else have. And I think with any artist, you need to practice and you need to put the work in. You're not going to be great at everything the first time you do your makeup. I get like comments from kings and queens and everyone that are like, I'm not getting booked and I can't practice my makeup because I'm not getting booked. Like, that's not an excuse. You don't have to be booked to practice your makeup. You can practice your makeup at home. You can take pictures and take video of you practicing your things, and you don't have to post those. If they're not good, don't post them. Like, get better at it first, and then you can post it. You have, the freedom is all yours. You're your own creator, your own director, your own makeup artist, costume designer, producer, storyteller. You're everything. So what kind of entertainer do you have goals for yourself? So if you want to be someone that is getting paid top payment, getting booked in the best shows, traveling the country and the world, then you have to put in the amount of work that gets that. And I think people come up to me and I'm like, oh, well, you got to practice, you got to do this. And they say, give me advice. And I tell them just what I did. And they're like, well, I shouldn't have to work that hard. I should just be able to get it because drag is valid. I'm like, yes, your drag is valid, but your drag isn't going to be valid for that kind of pay with the amount that you're doing. I think that's where it gets confusing, where they want high success, but they don't want to put the work in for that high success. Like, if you want to work at the local bar that celebrates queer art and there's not a stage and people gather around you and watch you because they love you that much, but there's not a lot of pay there, great, because that's a great environment. If you want to make some more money so that you can invest back in your art and then you can be on platforms so you can expose the world to your art, then you have to put in those efforts too. And I think that's where some of the lazy gets construed and misunderstand. And I don't want to offend people, because do drag if you want to do drag, but what level of drag are you trying to do to then put that level of work into it?
Yeah. I do think there's a conversation to be had too, where there is a lack of like representation for kings in like both television and even like live shows and venues and stuff. But I think part of that too is the overbooking of queens. So queens that, you know, they don't have a performance in mind, they don't have a goal and ambition. They just want to. They saw Drag Race, they want to get in drag, they want to get on television maybe, and they're booked in shows that, you know, where they should probably still be doing open stage nights and practicing their craft. Right. And it's, I think, the mindset of a lot of kings, they see those queens just jumping in and getting booked in the shows because drag queens are hot right now, and they
Yeah.
have been for the past decade or so.
And that's why I'm constantly critiquing for more drag king visibility. And it's not, you know,
But good visibility.
good visibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you need to step up these costumes, get the better at the makeup. We need better optics.
Yeah.
Like even way before Dragula, you had become one of like the world's most prominent like drag kings. And with that, you were ready to take your drag to television.
Mhm.
But television wasn't yet ready for you.
Yeah.
And you had actually auditioned for Drag Race like 3 times, right?
Yeah.
Like it was like 6, 7, 8 or something like
Yeah.
that.
Uh-huh.
And then this is where I kind of want to open up discussions about like kings and Drag Race, because we've kind of talked about your journey leading to here. But I just want to like, just open that dialogue because I think a lot of people have very uninformed opinions. They have very strong opinions with no merit to back that up other than they watch Drag Race.
Right.
Why do you think at this point, with all these years that Drag Race has been on, that you or any other king have not yet gotten a call for the show?
I think it still comes back to the fear of critiquing masculinity. I think, and misogyny and patriarchy. I still think all of that is still very heavy-handed, with a fear of what the audience will say, because we if we go back to use trans queens as example, we know that they've been around. We know that they've been celebrated, and beautiful, talented queens that marked and are the reasons why we have so many things that are available to us now. And RuPaul always knew that. And she made some very horrible remarks about trans queens in the past about being on her show. But the world spoke up and they kept fighting for that kind of visibility. And finally they realized the audience isn't afraid of this anymore. The audience is ready to learn about this now. And of course, a lot of the audience is still very transphobic and speaking out against trans queens. But that also is a root of the comments that were made beforehand and those transphobic comments beforehand. So I think it's the people were ready, and I think the people are ready now, but it's, again, we still need to fight for it, and people need to speak up and be allies. And it's like, for me, climbing a ladder. When I climb a ladder, I'm still reaching behind me to help other people up. And a lot of people with privilege don't do that. When they finally get to where they're at, they don't remember to help other people up the ladder too. And I think we're getting more and more people with privilege to do that. And I think that's why the conversation is growing more and more positive when every single year there's a new article comes out. Drag King should be on Drag Race. Since the beginning, since I was performing. It's been that same thing, and every year it's shot down by horribly misogynistic men with preconceived notions on what a drag king can do. Not just what they've done in the past, but what they are capable of doing. Who are you to tell us what we are capable of doing? If you've never seen it, it doesn't mean it's not possible. It just means you haven't seen it yet. And every year it kept happening over and over and over again, but every year that conversation, I'm given the opportunity to speak on it again. Other kings are getting opportunities to speak on it again. More and more kings are getting opportunities to speak on that topic, and more eyes are being opened and ears are listening and realizing, okay, I can see that. And that little nugget can be something that blossoms into something else. And I think we're finally seeing that we're getting closer to people understanding that kings are capable of anything. It's to give them opportunities to do that. I just think it's unfortunate that kings are missing out on the opportunity to be in this like zeitgeist. We have queens on the show that are changing our language, adding memes and these clips of them are going viral, and brand new language is evolving, and kings and a lot of like cis women are being left out of that growth in of this part of the gay world and the queer world. And I think we're seeing history repeat, where men write history and they write women out of it. And we have a broader spectrum to include more identities, but it's still that same concept of cis men write history and they leave everyone else out of it.
Yeah. I mean, Drag Race has like made strides. So again, like I say, someone that I think even with as exclusionary as the show has been, I do think overall it has been more of a net positive than a net loss for like the queer community at large.
For sure.
But I mean, they're still, critique the things you love because you want it to be better.
Of course, I wouldn't be able to be performing full time before I was on Dragula if it wasn't for Drag Race. I completely give so much. I am so grateful for that show because it has opened up more shows and more people interested in going to shows, and that is the reason why I have my gigs, because people are coming to the venues because they heard about drag from Drag Race. I know that I wouldn't be able to perform full time without that show. I just want people to realize that there can be so much better to be more inclusive.
Yeah. You want to you want to push it towards like the opportunity that it can be.
Yeah.
To be the best version of itself. But I mean, the show has made like more progress in recent years. Like just recently, my season having all the trans representation. We
Yeah.
started getting our AFAB queens on some of the shows. And they've already experimented, I feel, with like some drag king characters, like Victoria Scone doing a drag king runway that was celebrated. Obviously, Lady Gaga or Miley showing up as characters.
Right.
Even the drag queens doing like male characters during the show. So
For sure.
it shows the opportunity is there. But with like the representation that's been on the show so far, I'm just curious like what your reaction was whenever you've been advocating for kings to get on the show. They haven't been casted. AFAB queens aren't on the show. And then you find out that the straight queen got cast. Like obviously like, you have your thoughts about me as a person, but I'm curious, what were your thoughts like at that time? Like with knowing Drag Race's history and like the representation and lack thereof.
Yeah, that's the time I was like, not surprised. Another opportunity for someone else that maybe doesn't need the opportunity. I didn't know. I didn't know who you were, how you were, or how talented you are, or how funny you are, and how you can read the and how much of an ally you are. Didn't know anything about that. All I heard was the headline, straight drag queen gets on Drag Race. And of course you feel like another blow to the going out of your way not to celebrate women, or celebrate lesbians. Again, like another way to go out of your way to give other people opportunity instead of everyone else. And I know I put my foot in my mouth at the time because, of course, I've come to love you and admire you, and we've had the conversation many times before. But it's all different. But at the time, it bothered me, and it hurt that it was again. And of course, it's a white cis guy, and it's not even like a trans man or something that that was Gottmik before you or after you?
Gottmik was before me. The season before.
So yeah, a straight man.
Yeah, I was the diversity hire my season.
Yeah.
So, but I had the same mindset going in the show because I discovered drag through local drag. I hadn't seen I started doing drag before I ever even saw Drag Race.
Yeah.
And so after years and years going by of like seeing Drag Race, I was like, wow, there's no AFAB queens, there's no drag kings.
Yeah.
And whenever I put in a tape, I got cast, and like I do think that my casting was an inevitability. I think there are other straight queens very talented. I think it was just like the timing, but I do kind of think that the other representation should have already happened by now.
I think that what works for you is because it's personality, right? And I think people are cast based on their personality. And if it was a fact that kings haven't been on that show because they just haven't had anyone audition that they thought had a personality that worked or was just good enough, then I understand. We haven't found a king that's good enough yet, but the comments that have been made was very, very divisive. It's like, no, they're not irreverent. They're not ironic. They're not punk rock. It doesn't belong. And it's like, how is a man impersonating a woman? In most cases, obviously, drag is far beyond that. But at the time, drag impersonating a woman, the only irreverent part of stepping down the societal scale and a woman impersonating a man where you're punching up is not irreverent, or it didn't make sense to me. And I feel like you are such a great person to fit that role because you're a feminist and you're the kind of guy that doesn't get grossed out by women being on her period or a girlfriend being on her period. I feel like you're like, oh yeah, cool. What can I get you? Can I get you a hot press? Can I get you like some Tylenol, babe? Like, what can I do to help you? You're not just like backstage going, ew, And I still deal with a bunch of drag queens who are like that. Like, if I'm backstage in my safe space, telling my coworkers and my friends, like, oh man, I'm really uncomfortable today. I'm really bloated. I started my period, and I hear across the room backstage, and I'm like, how are we still in this age where you're still grossed out by a woman having their period? Like, how are you just not being open to the fact that this is something that's I'm not consenting this to happen in my body, something that I'm not in charge of. It just happens to me, and I'm not asking to be coddled. I just don't want my coworkers in my safe space where I thought I can be true to who I am. I still have this kind of response from people who don't are outdated opinions and stuff. When you have free condoms at the door, but I don't have free tampons in the bathrooms, like
Yeah.
it's that same kind of. We still have that going on backstage, but I feel like you're a guy who's cool with the periods. They're like,
Thank you.
I have a pad in my back pocket because I'm an ally.
Keep that thing on me. You know? Yeah. Again, like I definitely think that other representation was much needed, like on the show, and still is. But I am very fortunate in that, like, I knew the negativity that I received when I was cast. I understood where it was coming from, and
Right.
I appreciated it to an extent. And I noticed a lot of discourse. They're like, why is this person on, but more trans representation isn't on? Where's the AFAB queens, the kings, etc. And I think my casting did help open that conversation up, and it was a good conversation to have.
Yeah.
Even if it was at my expense on Twitter, but
Right. Right.
but it did open up that conversation, and people are still talking about it. They're like, we had Maddy Morphosis 2 seasons. Like, why wouldn't we have a king yet? I'm someone of the camp that I think that kings have a place on the regular seasons of Drag Race. It's the biggest platform. I think should be a part of it. But just to play devil's advocate for a moment, what do you say to the people that say that drag kings should have their own spin-off show?
Yeah, I think it's a cop out. I think it's like a consolation prize. I think we don't know what to do with you, so let's just put you over here. And I think being on flagship Drag Race is important because you have built this huge audience whose only introduction to drag is through that show. And as unfortunate as that might be, it has built up an entire community of drag and lifted so much drag and inspired so many people. And I think the level of inspiration that you can do to little girls out there and little queer people out there that realize, like, oh, I can do that. I found myself in this community, but I didn't know how I can see myself. And on that show, to have that visibility is so important to continue to circle and to inspire people and to show that we exist. And it's not different. It's the same. We're doing the same thing. We're putting the same amount of effort. We're with our bodies. We're uncomfortable. We're putting so much effort into that. We're creating characters. We're acting. We're writing out jokes. We're hosting shows. We're doing the exact same thing. It's just because it's slightly different in what people are expecting or used to. And I think it's bullshit to think that we should just be swept off to the side.
Yeah. I know a lot of people too, another kind of a worry about kings being casted on the regular season of Drag Race is that Drag Race, with the impact that it has really shifted a lot of people's perception of what drag should be. Do you not worry that kings being cast on Drag Race will kind of stifle like people's perception of drag kings and what drag kings can do? Kind of putting them like in a box of like people have to be like the Drag Race king. Like that's the only style that's like valid.
I can see that fear, but I also say, let us see if that nightmare happens. Like, give us an opportunity to see what exists. Like, people always want to critique the idea of it, like, oh, the drag kings aren't going to be judged right, or they're going to be shat on, or they're going to be told the same thing over and over again. Then let them. Drag queens that are competing are getting the same feedback and being shat on and being told the same bad, or they're being judged horribly and judged unfairly. So why not let a king go through the same shit? Let that king be the martyr if they have to. Let that king be the one that, you know what, I'm gonna step up and I'm gonna take this, and I'm gonna be the one that takes all of this hard judgment, and hopefully that'll open up for more people to come in and open up their eyes.
Yeah, but despite not getting on Drag Race though, you eventually got cast for the show Dragula, which congratulations for winning that, by the way.
Thank you. Spoiler alert.
But with that, like, Dragula being the most prominent show that's had King showcased on it thus far, do you worry that that has actually had like an unintended side effect of now when people go to a show, they expect all kings to be spooky or alternative?
No, not at all. Especially because I don't only perform spooky. I perform lots of different things because of trying to be diverse and do a lot of different things. I go to shows, even if I'm being billed as Dragula, I still take my campy, funny looks and campy mixes because it's who I am and it's what I love to do. So I'm not concerned about people thinking that drag kings have to be spooky at all.
Do you think shows like Drag Race will eventually open their doors to drag kings? Do you think that's something that's in the near or far future?
I'm hopeful. If I wasn't hopeful, I probably wouldn't be fighting so hard. I think there's needs to be some kind of change, whether it's in the minds of the people in charge or the money that's filling the lines of the pockets of the people in charge. I think something needs to change. It's we've already seen so much change and evolution. I think it's just the next step in progression, and I'm just hoping that they don't stunt cast and put someone who's not ready on there just to make a point that kings shouldn't have been on there to begin with. I think that's my biggest fear of anything happening, is that they put a king that wasn't ready for it, and not that their art isn't good, is that they're not ready. Just like I thought the first couple times I auditioned, oh, they just don't think I'm ready. Okay, let me work harder. And just like queens, when you audition multiple times, queens are like, oh, I guess they didn't think I was ready yet. So let me get better outfits. Let me keep working, and I'll keep auditioning next year. It's the same thing that I thought. And then it was clear that it wasn't about me getting better. It was that I was just a king in general. So I think I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
I have to be hopeful.
I'm in the camp that I think it's inevitable at some point. I think that they're already experimenting with it. You know, like again, like with things like Victoria Scott doing King runways.
See, but that's
seeing the
not
positive
them. That's not
reception.
them. Just experimenting with it. That's the
But they've
artist.
embraced it though. You know, they've shared it. They've
Right.
reposted it.
Right.
You know, it's not
Yeah.
something that they're just like, oh, that happened, kick it under the rug.
Totally.
I think the only thing is that, again, you know, like with each season, you know, they want to have like some new thing, you know, keep the show interesting. And I think too, like the moment that kings are cast on the show, I think that, you know, people are going to have that expectation that every season we have to have a king on the show, which I agree. I think that should be the case, but it will fundamentally like change a lot about the show in a lot of regards.
Right.
You know,
And for things like Drag Race, they don't cast people to win. They cast a cast of characters, and they're going to let them play out, and they already have an idea of how long they're going to stay. We already know. But for something like Dragula, they always talk about how we only cast people who we think are going to win. So they didn't have kings on every single season because they didn't. So in the Belay saying that they didn't find the king that they thought were actually in the running to win in the cast that was there. But I think Drag Race doesn't cast a whole cast to win. They cast a cast of characters. So I think the king just has to fit the character.
I don't know if I buy that about the Boulets though.
I'm just speaking that what
yeah.
has been said.
Yeah, I'm, you know, I say this as someone that's a fan of Dragula and, you know, the Boulets and like what they've done and like the show they've created as well. But like, yeah, I think that Dragula does run into a lot of the same faults as like Drag Race, as far as like, you know, casting and representation and, you know, kind of like giving people like a very narrow view of like what
Right.
drag can and can't be.
No one's perfect.
yeah,
And anything like that can't be perfect.
but again, the
Yeah.
same thing, like more of a net positive than net negative.
For
but
sure.
I don't know if I buy that every person they cast, they're like, this person might win. 'Cause I've seen some people on these recent seasons, and I'm like, okay, you're an early out.
Name them.
No. Like, what? No, the Dragula fan base are crazy. They're a little too passionate. But with competition shows like Dragula, do you find it difficult being judged like by your peers, essentially?
No, because I feel like giving critique and suggestions and like constructive criticism is I'm happy to receive it. Like,
I asked that because like your high school yearbook quote, you said, "Don't judge me, that's God's job."
oh yes,
So,
oh
how
yeah,
is this-
that was that.
Yeah,
that-
so I was like, how, you know, you think that, you know, that's God's job to judge you. So how
Yeah.
can the Boulets? I was like, what was your thought process?
No, man, because this was not a good look. This was when I believe that I was in the Cardinals for Christ Club. I was a struggling person to find themselves, and the Christian church found me first.
They got you, gal.
Got
They
me,
got
gal.
you. They got you. This is the last question that I have. With you being of an older generation than I, do you need help setting up a booking email that's not AOL?
No, I'm
I can do
fine.
that for you.
I'm fine. I do have Gmail accounts, but
Okay.
I'm happy with my AOL account.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
I just know, like, every time you get a booking, you just hear in the distance,
Can you bleep out my email address?
Oh,
'Cause I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
want
yeah.
people
Yeah,
emailing my
we'll take care of
personal
that. I got you. I got you.
Yeah, I'm happy with my AOL address. But people have made fun of me forever. And I just, you know what? I go against the grain. I'm punk rock. I don't do what everyone thinks.
I don't think having an AOL is punk rock.
Yeah,
but,
it is, because I could have changed it a long time ago to go with the flow and do what everyone else thinks I should do. And, ooh, you should have a Gmail. Before it was Hotmail. Ooh, you should get a Hotmail. Now, ooh, you should get a Gmail account. You can off. I'm happy. I know exactly how to work it. I'm good. You can read my AOL account all you want.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to stand by it.
Well, as long as you're happy, that's all that matters. But with
It
that,
works, right? You emailed me. You forwarded emails to me.
it's
That's
true.
fine.
It's true. It found you. It found you. You know, you had to crank the dial up, but it got to you. But with that, that is the last of my questions and last bit of time that we have today. But with that, before we do, I wanted to give you a gift before you leave today. As I mentioned, you are a huge fan of the theater. I gotta get up. Walk like a man over here.
Grab your crotch on the way out.
A huge fan of the theater, but more importantly, you are a huge fan of Stephen Sondheim.
Oh my God.
What is it about? These are a collection of his works and lyrics, his notes, and a bunch of stuff about him.
How cool.
With this, what is it about Stephen Sondheim that was so important to you?
He's just like, I love how ridiculous and smart and witty the lyrics are, and just how, like, it's like white boy rapping. And I think that's just so funny to me, because it's just like, da, 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 and like, it's so hard and hard to learn, but also just like, I mean, not everything he's written is great, you know? He's got some flops here and there.
Yeah.
But it's just so, I don't know. I just, probably because one of my first musicals, like Into the Woods, was one of my favorite things. And
I was in Into the Woods too.
yeah, who'd you play in Into the Woods?
Cinderella's Prince.
Oh, fun.
I actually talk about that in the Rose episode.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I played the baker's wife, which was like one of my dream roles when I got to play her. And
Well, who doesn't want to be the baker?
I know. But yeah, this is so cool. Thank you. I can't wait to peruse this on the airport on my flight home. My 45-minute flight home.
You got time to open it up.
This is so cool.
So, do you have anything coming up right now? Do you have any like tours or anything happening, or like throughout the rest of this year? Where can people find you? What's coming up?
Nothing too crazy. It's actually a transitional year for me. I'm starting to explore.
You are trans.
Almost. Trying to explore other things that I can use with all my interests and experience that this drag journey has brought me, but also I have up knees and I have up teeth and I have a lot of things going on, so I got to figure out what I'm going to do with the rest of my life or when I grow up. So I'm thinking about how I could use my two passions, which I got into drag because I love the theater and performing, and I still do, and I also have learned through drag that I also love activism, and I love the opportunity to use my platform to speak up and help lift up other people up the ladder. And I think my experience in that and my passion that has come from fundraising and activism and speaking up and using my platform to speak up for people who can only whisper has been something that has really inspired me. And trying to transition my experience into maybe focus on that and go from full-time drag, depending on this for my income, to keeping it maybe part-time and doing it for fun and taking the gigs that I want to take because they're fun and not the ones that I have to take because they pay the rent. Yeah. And I think that's what's, I'm at right now, where I'm not giving up drag or retiring by any sorts. I'm just thinking I got to do some switching around and put my focus into something else after the last 15 years, my last quinta.
Yeah, last quinta. Are all your socials the same name?
Yep, Landon Cider and everything. I'm only on TikTok, Instagram, and still on Facebook because I still have my older fans.
That's like most of them, except for Twitter, right?
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I wasn't really on it much, especially when Elon took over, and I think I deleted my account.
Yeah, well, that's valid.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can find me right here. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss any upcoming guests. And join us next time whenever we have
somebody else.
Yeah. But yeah, till then, bye guys.
Let's go.
Tokenization, number one.